News Central now at this hour begins in West Africa, where Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima says the President Bola Tinubu administration is determined to eradicate corruption without fear or favoritism. He stated this on Thursday at the second edition of the Chronicle Roundtable in the nation's capital, Abuja, where he said the government has been working to reduce the unemployment rate in the country. The event was focused on examining how Tinubu's administration's economic and social agenda will transform Nigeria. Some members of the president's party, the ruling All Progressives Congress, are currently being prosecuted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for sundry corruption charges. The latest in the list is ex-Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello, who the anti-graft agency is prosecuting on 19 counts bordering on alleged money laundering, breach of trust, and misappropriation of funds to the tune of 80.2 billion naira. Let's also tell you that the Nigerian government has initiated a 15-day emergency fuel supply program in a bid to alleviate the hardships faced by Nigerians amidst a widespread fuel scarcity. Now, under this initiative, vessels importing premium motor spirit will continue to dock at ports across the country, offloading much-needed fuel into various depots where they will be swiftly distributed to filling stations nationwide. The Major Energies Marketers Association of Nigeria had, in a statement issued earlier on Tuesday, reported a significant influx of fuel into key locations such as Apapa, thanks to the arrival of multiple vessels carrying over 300 million liters of PMS. However, officials remain optimistic that these measures will soon lead to a more stable fuel supply chain, offering relief to millions of Nigerians grappling with the consequences of the crisis. And let's head to security matters, where the military has completed its investigation into the drone bombing of Tudumburi village in Kaduna State, indicting 2 Nigerian army officers. The officers will face court-martial as the operation should not have occurred. Now, the Director of Defense Media Operations, Edward Buba, revealed this during a press briefing at Defense Headquarters on Thursday. The bombing of Tudumburi village in Kaduna State, which took place on December 3, 2023, resulted in numerous casualties during a Maulud celebration. 2 days later, the National Emergency Management Agency reported burying 85 bodies. The Nigerian police force said its operatives had arrested one Ibrahim Abdullahi, also known as Mandi, who is believed to be the mastermind behind the March 2022 Abuja-Kaduna train attack. The force public relations officer, ACP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, disclosed this during a press briefing in Kaduna State. He stated that 48 AK-47 rifles were recovered during his arrest, while investigations are ongoing to identify the sponsors and supplier of the weapons. In the meantime, motorists in Nigeria's capital Abuja have complained about the availability of petrol to black market sellers, despite being scarce in the open market and causing untold hardship for citizens. Our correspondent, Joshua Imarayi, visited some petrol stations in the capital to appraise the current situation. Here's his report from the ground.
Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. The fuel scarcity has left motorists waiting in long queues for the product. Despite efforts to address the issue, fuel queues remain a stark reality, and in the midst of this crisis, black market operators are capitalizing on the desperation of motorists.
You know, sometimes when there's fuel scarcity like that, it's usually a difficult period and a trying period for almost everyone, whether drivers or even passengers or just everyone. It makes the whole place kind of stressful like that.
You can see some motor, some golf motor, they buy fuel more than 200 liters inside their vehicle. So some are putting double tank inside the motor. The other day I did for one golf, more than 200 and something thousand. I wonder, say, golf what I use, where no reach 70 liters.
Why would you get fuel from this one and then resell to save citizens like you at a higher price. I feel like that's a crime. I don't know, but I feel like maybe there should be a task force to be checking and regulating these things.
As fuel scarcity persists, a clear pattern emerges. Black market sellers have plenty of fuel to sell, despite long queues at fuel stations across the country. This raises a question about why some people have access to fuel while others wait in line.
Kamar area 1 ko kuma zone 3 haka akwai gidan mai Ondo suna bamu, akwai kuma NNPC amma ba wannan ba, ƙaramin NNPC kenan su ma suna bamu, amma nan ba sa bayarwa. Muna shiga da mota ne, in muka shiga da mota sukan cika mana tankin motar mu, tukunan in su kuma suka fito za su biya roja a ciki, mu ma kuma in suka fito mu ma za su ƙara mana akan abin da suka siyo, mu ba su riba sai su bamu. Muna ba su kamar 85 ko wani sa'in ma in yi wahala sosai na zuwa 9,000 9,500, mu kuma muna siyarwa 10,000 ko kuma 10,500.
Despite lengthy queues, Nigerians remain hopeful that the persistent challenge of fuel scarcity will soon be alleviated and normalcy will be restored back to the streets. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Now, the federal government of Nigeria says it will stop granting licenses to gas companies with no capacity to build pipelines for gas distribution. This, the government said, became necessary to discourage the transportation of compressed natural gas through the roads. The Minister of State for Petroleum, Ekperikpe Ekpo, made this disclosure when he was in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, on Wednesday. Ekpo had visited Abeokuta for an on-the-spot assessment of Saturday's CNG explosion at Itaoshin. Lagos was set ablaze after rival gangs clashed in the area, but apparently this isn't the case. The fire came from an abandoned dumpster in the area and not the market. Our correspondent, Bernard Akede, went to the site and spoke to us earlier from the site. Away from that, the organized labor has handed the federal government a May 31st deadline to come up with a reasonable new minimum wage for Nigerian workers. Labor made this known during the Workers' Day celebrations at the Eagle Square in Abuja. The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, and his counterpart in the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, were unanimous that the 30,000 naira current minimum wage has been grossly insufficient for Nigerian workers in the light of current economic realities and inflationary pressure, including food inflation, hike in energy and transportation costs, amongst others. They insisted that a new living wage of 615,000 naira be approved by the President Bola Tinubu administration before the end of May. Now, according to Ajero, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the TUC have made it clear that should the minimum wage negotiation continue and linger till the end of May, they can no longer guarantee industrial harmony in the country. Away from that, as the conversation concerning the construction of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road continues, the Federal Minister of Works, David Umahi, has held a second meeting with stakeholders. At this meeting, it was stated that some stakeholders had started receiving compensation for their demolished structures, while others still expressed concerns about what will become theirs. Our correspondent, Bernard Akede, who has been following the story, filed this report from the meeting.
Gathering of stakeholders directly or indirectly affected by the ongoing demolition from the creation of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. This is not the first such stakeholder meetings. However, at this one, there were certain differences. The Federal Minister of Works, David Umahi, accompanied by other government officials, signed the highway route at this meeting. He also assured stakeholders that the road will be in the best interest of Nigerians, after which he commenced the compensation process for some.
I signed the route technically today, the first day of May 2024, And I assure Nigerians that this route is for the best interests of Nigeria, and it will have along the corridor a lot of land for tourism we are talking about. I bless Mr. President, I bless our country, and it's my pleasure to unveil the new design route to the glory of God. I wish to flag off the compensation from Challenge 0 to Challenge 3 in a total sum of 2.75 billion.
Besides the businesses that will be affected by the construction, some community dwellers from Okwaja raised major concerns about the coastal highway cutting through their community. They requested that the minister redirect the highway to the former plan. But their claims were quickly countered by others from the same community who claimed the road was going through the right path.
The problem we have there, we have an original alignment inside our CFO when Bola Ahmed, when they were governor of Lagos State, give to the community. The alignment is there. We are now surprised how the commissioner now be taking the coastal road, diverting into the middle of the community. Then if the coastal road passes the community, it will wipe all the community away. Then he's claiming that 250 meters is from ocean, is government, is federal government property. But the sea already have chopped more than 600 meters.
I want to show him how grateful we are that he has listened to our complaint and that a realignment has been done to an initial road, a wider road that for ages has been known as the coastal road. But there are some grievances that happen here today with the indigenes of the community, which they are claiming that they should take it back to the last alignment, which is going to affect majority of landlords there. And these same people are the ones that sold this land to us.
There were also those who were thankful, after much consideration, that the coastal road would eventually bypass their facilities and there will be no demolition.
It was last month that we had this type of meeting that I was here, and I said the only thing is that they should not define in pay. And when they said checks are ready today, I was very happy, very, very. I don't know what they paid them, but at least compensation have started. And they said they are not going to stop until when everybody have received their own. I think that is commendable.
As the demolition of structures and compensation of affected persons have now commenced, the conversations have changed. All eyes will now be on the coastal highway, hoping the result will eventually be worth it. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Thank you, Bernard, for that report. Now, earlier, a socio-political analyst, Zari Yusuf, spoke to us on this development.
Very extremely negatively on the, the economy, whether you look at it locally or you look at it on a national scale. I think first is the question of where exactly the money is coming from. Whatever project has been budgeted for that project itself. And like I said, whether locally, especially as it affects communities, or at the national level, it has a very, very profound negative impact. To begin with, what called for the realignment, and then who and who is being compensated, how are they doing the compensations, and then how do we basically intend to fund whatever it is we are doing, especially to a conclusion. And I think your reporter said something that that is, if at all, the attention is moving away already. They've started compensation, so-called. We would see if at the end of the day the project would be worth it. But Nigeria has, a history of such projects where likely 10, 15, or possibly 20 years from now, we'll still be talking about that.
Governors of Bayelsa, Rivers, Cross River, Edo, and Delta states have lauded President Bola Tinubu for initiating the construction of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Now, the highway will link coastal communities with major commercial hubs across Nigeria when completed. The 12th gathering of the South-South Governors, also known as Braced Commission Governor Council, comprising Bayelsa, Rivers, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Edo and Delta, convened in the conference hall of the Bayelsa State Government House in Yenogwa, took place on Tuesday, April 31st. Presided over by Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State, alongside Bayelsa State Governor Duyo Duri and other representatives, discussion centered on regional development and cooperation. Now, following deliberations behind closed doors, the council appreciated the federal government for the progress made on the newly awarded Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road. However, they also emphasized the importance of expediting work on the East-West Road. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and celebrity Barman Cubana chief priest have agreed to settle the Naira abuse charge slammed against the socialite out of court. The Federal High Court in Lagos State had on Wednesday granted Cubana chief priest 10 million Naira bail with 2 shorties in like sum. He was arraigned before Justice Kehinde Ogundare on 3 counts bordering on abuse of Naira, spraying and tampering with the nation's currency at the social event, contrary to the provisions of the Central Bank Act of 2007. The Katsina state government has called for an end to illegal mining in the state, saying it shortchanges government of expected revenue and aids insecurity. Now, this was as the state governor paid a courtesy visit to the Minister of Solid Minerals Development in Abuja, calling for collaboration to end the menace of illegal mining in the state. Idong Joseph reports.
Illegal mining is one of the activities that fuels banditry, kidnapping, and widespread criminal activities in Katsina State, as well as other neighboring states in Nigeria. While the country loses billions of naira to illegal miners, there are concerns that many of them shortchange the nation of revenue from taxation and also aid insecurity.
And this illegal mining, these illegal miners provide this bandit with weapons to protect their mining site as well as create problems to the other citizens or the host community. There are some areas that are no-go areas in our locality.
In a bid to address the issue of illegal mining in the state, the Katsina state government is seeking the collaboration of the federal government to review mining licenses and the processes of issuing license in the state, as some of their holders are suspected to be aiding insecurity.
And today, we have a number of people, over I think 50 or 70 miners that have gotten title, but they are not using the title. They are just using it for any other purpose. We don't know. But there are so many people who have shown interest, serious investors who have shown interest to mine this place, but some people have pulled the title to their chest. They are not exploring and they are not allowing other people to do it. And I think we need to collaborate in this sector.
Reacting to the concerns of the state, the Minister of Solid Minerals Development informed the governor that the nation's Mining Act is currently under review and will address many of the concerns when completed.
We put in a lot of new initiatives there, one of which is this. Henceforth, letters of consent must be obtained before approval of licenses. The issue you raised on that letters of consent was possible because it wasn't part of the requirement for approving licenses before.
The governor revealed plans to attract investors to the mining sector that will help boost revenue generation. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
A consortium of international development partners has called for an end to violence in Nigeria's Niger Delta region and the restoration of peace through a community-led approach. Now, this was during the presentation of the report of a baseline study carried out in the 3 states of Rivers, Delta, and Bayelsa across 63 communities in the states. Amadine Uyi reports.
The killing of 17 security personnel in Okwama, Delta State, located in Nigeria's Niger Delta region, has continued to shock citizens across the country. This brings to fore issues of violence and insecurity in the region and the need to bring an end to the cycle which is having its toll on livelihoods, affecting women and children, and stalling development of the oil-rich region. One international non-governmental organization, the Search for Common Ground in collaboration with international development partners, unveiled its report on a baseline study on community-centered approach to transforming criminality and violence in the region.
In many cases, Nigeria has a number of challenging conflict areas, and the Niger Delta has always been one where focus really needed to be paid to really understand the complexities of the conflict issues on the ground.
Since its commemoration on November 8, 2023, this project has permeated 66 communities across 33 local government areas of Rivers, Bayelsa, and Delta. The baseline study delved into the intricate web of social, political, environmental, and economic dynamics underlying violence and criminality in these three states.
By directly confronting criminality and violence in the Niger Delta, the project specifically focused on empowering vulnerable groups, such as the at-risk youth, unemployed graduates, orphans, and single mothers.
Members of this consortium say they are hopeful that the findings will bring an end to violence in the area.
The findings of the baseline study offer a poignant narrative of the realities faced by our communities. They underscore the profound impact of socioeconomic challenges, such as unemployment and economic hardship, in perpetuating circles of violence and marginalization.
As we talk about the community approach to issues of criminality and violence in the Niger Delta, and we look at the baselines of resolving these issues, the causes and the ramifications involved, it's important to note that one critical factor remains, and that it remains unacceptable that the symbolic goose that lays the golden egg is being neglected administration after administration in the Nigerian state, and that until the Niger Delta people are given fair share of the resources that God has blessed them, there will be hardly be peace in the Niger Delta.
They say they are hopeful that this report will catalyze the return of peace in the region, accompanied by development. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
And let's move to South Africa, where civil rights group #NotInMyName says it is deeply concerned by a meeting that took place between South Africa's Independent Electoral Commission and the United States of America's controversial ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Bridgetti II. The meeting follows after a request by Democratic Alliance's letter to the United States of America's Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, requesting foreign intervention in the upcoming elections after citing potential foreign interference. The group says it requests that the contents of the meeting be made available for public scrutiny. In just under 30 days, South Africa will be going to the much-anticipated 2024 national and provincial government elections after 30 years of democracy. Earlier, President NotInMyName International, Siyabulela Gentile, spoke to us on this development.
Ambassador to South Africa, the U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Bridgetti II, is a very controversial man for obvious reasons. You know what he said about the country previously, and we believe that he's not a man that can be trusted. And so we are saying, because of the sensitivity around these elections and some domestic politics in South Africa and some issues that we've seen playing out towards these elections, we thought that it was important that the IEC, which is the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa, takes the general public into its confidence and tell us what the meeting was about and what it aimed to achieve, to whose interest and at what cost.
The Gauteng Health Department has recorded an increase in the teenage pregnancy and termination of pregnancies among girls between 10 to 19 years. Now, according to the department's statistics, more than 20,000 deliveries and termination of pregnancy have been recorded in public hospitals across the provinces and increased compared to previous years. In its bid to fight this pressing issue, the department says it will release an intervention plan. Earlier, now, in neighboring Zimbabwe, Iran has offered 1,000 Zimbabweans educational scholarships, and this comes after the Vice President, Dr. Constantino Chiwenga, led Zimbabwe delegation at the second Iran-Africa International Economic Conference. According to the Zimbabwe government, the aim of the scholarship is to enhance science and technology in the country. The individuals who are lecturers in Zimbabwe will undergo a 6-month course and after head back home and train others in their respective fields. The first batch of 12 students will commence with their studies before the end of the year. This program is set to only target educators from polytechnics and industrial colleges. Now, in health, 53 children have lost their lives in Zimbabwe following the outbreak of suspected measles and mumps in Horongwe, Mashonaland, West Province. These children belong to an apostolic religious sect which is known for rejecting modern medicine as a way of practicing their faith, leading them to refrain from immunizing and vaccinating their children. Now, according to government spokesperson Nick Mangwana, the suspected measles outbreak came to light when a member of the church brought 4 of his children to Karoi Hospital, on which 2 of the children were showing signs of measles and the other 2 had mumps. Now, measles and mumps are both contagious viral infections. Symptoms of measles include high fever, red blotchy rash that usually starts on the face and spreads to the rest of the body, and cough, runny nose, and red watery eyes. In Central Africa, at least 29 people have died and tens of thousands displaced in Burundi since the start of the rainy season in September last year. Now, this is according to the United Nations. And Burundi, which the UN says is one of the 20 countries most vulnerable to climate change, has been pelted by almost non-stop rains for months, exacerbated by El Nino weather pattern. The UN said as of April 26th, more than 237,000 people have been affected, with 42,000 displaced, more than half of them women, adding that 29 people had died and 175 injured. East Africa has been experiencing torrential downpours in recent weeks that have devastated parts of the region, particularly Kenya and Tanzania, and cost several hundred lives. Still in East Africa, the Kenya Red Cross has released footage of their rescue of a man they say was stranded by flood waters and forced to take shelter up a tree for 5 days in Garissa. The flood-hit East African nation has battled heavy rains, resulting to 188 deaths so far, with thousands others displaced. It was reported that 125 people were injured and 90 people were currently missing, while 165,000 have been displaced. The heavy rains, amplified by the El Nino weather pattern, has devastated parts of the country as floods and landslides have destroyed roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. Now, in a move reflecting ongoing economic challenges, Globa, a major food delivery company in Africa, has announced plans to cease operations in Ghana by May 10, 2024. Citing profitability concerns and a reevaluation of investment priorities, the Spanish firm's departure will impact local employment and Ghana's GDP. Now, this decision aligns with the broader trend of multinational companies relocating from Ghana due to factors such as high borrowing costs, heavy taxation, inflation, and currency depreciation. The move underscores the urgent need for economic reforms to sustain investor confidence and stimulate growth. To discuss this, I'm joined by financial analyst and investment advisor Patrick Abanga. He joins us from Accra, Ghana. Hello, Patrick. Thank you for joining me at this time.
Thank you for having me on your show.
All right. So what specific economic challenges are driving multinational firms such as Globa to exit Ghana?
There are a number of factors that are playing in terms of some companies, especially multinationals, deciding to relocate some of them, their production site, and others, their whole business out of the country. The first that has to do with inflation. Now, last year, Ghana's inflation rose up as high as 54% within a period. Even though this year it has dropped to around 26%, inflation is also quite high if you compare Ghana with other neighboring countries who are, experiencing inflation in the region of about 15 and 16. So that is a major factor that is affecting the multinationals from relocating. The other thing has to do with exchange rates. Ghana's cedi has been depreciating against major currencies, especially the dollar, over the last even 5 months of this year, coupled with the depreciation that we experienced last year. So beyond inflation and also exchange rates, the next thing has to do with taxation. Government, because of the IMF program, had to impose a lot of taxes right from the port to company taxes, increasing them along the line. And some of these taxes, as they go up, they have major impact on the bottom line of these multinational companies. And if you are someone who follows multinationals, they only look at the bottom line. If the bottom line is not favorable and they can get other options from neighboring countries or other markets, quickly they will jump off. And that is the major cause of why some of these multinational companies are moving out of the country, and especially the latest one that we have seen with Globa.
All right, Patrick. Now, what measures have these multinational firms, identified as essential for sustaining profitability in Ghana, since it's one of the challenges they're facing?
I think the major factor that they have seen that is affecting their profitability will have to do with taxation and exchange rate. Now, we usually see Ghana's cedi against the dollar being stable for a while. But whenever you have the cedi depreciating very fast against the dollar, what it means is that even if they are making so much profit, which will be in the local currency, once they convert these cedis into dollars or pounds and repatriate to their home country, these monies are not enough to be able to cover their expectations in terms of the global expectations for the market that they find in. So you realize that you are producing more, you are getting more cedis, but when you convert as against other markets, you are not be able to repatriate enough profit to the home country. That's the first thing. The second thing has to do with the increased taxation and economic condition not being favorable. So let's say a company like Globa, who is into the distribution of food, if people's purchasing power goes down because the economic conditions are not that impressive, immediately it affects sales. And once it affects sales for a prolonged period of time, the stock value of that company also goes down. So for multinational, these are the challenges that they face. You, within your space, you may try to increase prices of the things that you sell, but as you increase, if the purchasing power of the consumer is not increased to be able to meet your market, you find out that sales will continue to depreciate. And over a period of time, there's little that you can do as a multinational company. The best is that you have to relocate to another market.
All right, so now what about elevated inflation? How does this affect the operational viability of multinational companies in Ghana?
Yes, so because most of these multinational companies, sometimes they have inputs coming in from outside the country. When inflation goes up, the cost of bringing the items becomes a bit expensive. And over a period of time, that also impacts on the cost of production. And the cost of production here is not just the item that you are bringing on board, but also people that are working for you. So the inflation that is, going up and down, either local inflation or imported inflation, all together has a direct impact on the bottom line of multinational companies. And the sad aspect is that as they begin to relocate, it leads to more situation of unemployment, especially among the teeming youth. And we find out the number of people that Globa has employed, that's about thousands of Ghanaians. And all of these people are going to be unemployed because inflation issues that the government is supposed to tackle has not been that successful over the last 2 years or so.
Okay. So just before we let you go, Patrick, how significant is the impact of high borrowing costs on businesses operating in Ghana?
Cost of borrowing or loans is quite a difficult challenge for most of the business in Ghana, not just even multinational, but even the local companies. Currently, when you look at the market, we have an average of about 38% on loans for businesses. When you strike it as against other countries, we have other countries having cost of borrowing for industry around 15%, 12%, some even 8%. So if I'm competing with another company who is in another country and they are enjoying cost of borrowing of about 8%, whilst I'm paying about 38%, well, first of all, I can't compete on that level. It eats up their profit level. At the same time, these businesses also want to expand. So until we get to a point where we're able to tame down and bring cost of borrowing in this country, things, one, will be high in terms of inflation, and two, these businesses will not be able to compete with their neighboring countries and also institutions that have low cost of borrowing from their home country. So, for example, if you're a company in Ghana and you are competing with a company from, let's say, Asia, who have interest rate of about 5%, as against you borrowing at 38%, obviously you can't compete on the issue of pricing. And once you can't compete on pricing, you begin to lose out on customers. And eventually, your business model will not be working and be seen as being viable and profitable over the long period of time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for joining me and speaking on this. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, here's another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Nigeria police arrest suspected mastermind of the 2022 Kaduna-Abuja train attack. We also told you that Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima says no favoritism under Tinubu's administration in the fight against corruption. Finally, you heard that El Nino weather pattern claims at least 29 lives in Burundi. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.